It's 2022, I'm in my bedroom and I'm just using paper to study. Literally just paper. I'm making flashcards. Flashcards are essentially like square pieces of paper where you like write down the point that you're trying to memorize and then close it and then try to read out in your mind, okay, what is it? So like, okay, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and then you check if you got it right. So obviously that's simple, we know what mitochondria is, but in a sense, like for the harder topics, you would write it down and you have to specifically write it down in a way where it's like it has to fit in the small piece of paper. Close the paper, so like keep it over its back, and then try to like read out what it said and then check if you got it right. I tried this, it never really worked for me. I get the idea, I get why this could work for memorization, but again, for long-term memory and like remembering what you just learned for the exam, it won't work. If you're watching this, you probably are interested in studying or getting better at studying, which is really nice because a very low amount of people actually want to study, let alone like, have the drive to study. So I'm glad that you're having it. I promise you by the end of this video, I'm going to teach you like a method that I used, which made me remember everything for the exam that I still remember, even though my finals was like 8 months ago. The best method, in my opinion, to remember what you learned is specifically write down what you understood. Don't copy the textbook answer and then memorize it. This is what flashcards are. So like you write down what the thing is in like a very small piece of paper and then you memorize it. Don't do that. Specifically understand what the textbook just told you. So like example, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Try to read it. Try to really understand what that paragraph of like mitochondria actually means. And then try to like really think, let your brain think and interpret what it actually said, and then write it down in a way that you can understand. I call this method brain notes. I don't know if anybody else coined the term or whatever. I'm just going to say brain notes. It's specifically notes that is relevant to the topic, but in the way that your brain interprets it. So instead of mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell, which is what the textbook says, right? Let's just imagine this is like the X for paragraph. So this could be anything in the paragraph, anything in the textbook. Instead of writing down mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell, read it and then write down what your brain just understood. Like your brain will start understanding, write down what it's thinking, like you're journaling or something. So essentially, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, you read that. You will write like, okay, mitochondria provides the cell with energy and that's why it's called the powerhouse of the cell. Even though that's literally the same sentence, except I just add mitochondria provides energy to the cell. That just made our brain understand it. Now, if I taught that to the kid, if I taught that to a 5-year-old kid, right? If I just said mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, they'll remember it by memorization, but they won't understand what I just said, right? If I told them that, okay, look, there's a thing called mitochondria, it provides energy to the cell, so like the cell has multiple membranes or whatever the fuck not. But mitochondria is the thing that provides energy, and that's why it's called the powerhouse of the cell. Now this kid will remember. If you taught that to a 5-year-old, he will remember that. So long as he heard it clearly, he will remember that for the rest of his life, because he'll know that, okay, the thing that provides energy to the cell is mitochondria. So now that you've read it and then wrote it down in a way that you understand, you took a brain note instead of just a normal note, you will actually remember what you learned. You can use this in anything. So for example, if there's like a business term that you didn't really understand, like a science term that you really didn't understand, or a physics term, instead of writing down word by word what the textbook says, genuinely just simply learn it. It sounds like common sense, but learn what the textbook is trying to teach you. The textbook is not something like an answer bank which you copy to the exam. A lot of exams will treat it like this. A lot of teachers will tell you this is what you should do. Don't do that bullshit. Read the textbook and then just understand what that sentence said or that paragraph said, and then write it in your own words. That's why a lot of teachers, or like good teachers, tell you, yeah, write it in your own words. When they say that, they're not saying, oh yeah, write another sentence. They're saying, write what you understood. That's how you know you understand. This is what learning is. And you don't have to do this just for textbooks. You can do this for learning any book. Like you read a book, you write down in journal what you've understood. This is how you learn. So instead of writing down exactly what the textbook says, read it. Just take another 10 minutes. It's not going to hurt, bro. You barely study. So just take another 10 minutes. Read what the textbook said. And then let your brain really think, what does this fucking mean? And then whatever your brain makes up, like cooks, write it down. Write down what your brain understood. So if I, for the first time, use this technique and then learned, okay, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, I'll just think, okay, it says mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. What did I just understand? Okay, mitochondria provides energy to the cell, and that's why in a lot of books they call it the powerhouse, because the powerhouse technically means like power, like energy. Boom. You've literally just understood it. You didn't memorize it, you understood it. Now, obviously, this mitochondria thing is like a very small example. You could use this for any large paragraph, any chapter that you don't understand. Because that's how you learn. This is how people learn science. They don't just memorize science and then write it down. They don't memorize physics and write it down. They can't understand what it is. Chemistry works with this. So like in chemistry, you have like understand what the fuck you're looking at, right? And then you write it down. Biology and stuff, a lot of people just tend to just like memorize what you just learned. Instead of that, literally just understand it. It sounds like common sense. It's like I'm teaching you basic maths. And just understand what you learned and then write it down. Remember this, brain notes, not normal notes. Brain notes is specifically notes relative to the topic you just learned, but what your brain understood instead. So don't write what the textbook says. Use the textbook as kind of like a vehicle to understanding the topic. Don't use the textbook as like an answer bank. It's a vehicle. This way you'll remember it forever. Like by now everybody knows the mitochondria is powerhouse of the cell because we memorized it because everybody in the world says it. So if you just understood it, that 5-year-old that I told mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell to, I keep saying that, will remember it forever because he understood that, okay, mitochondria is energy, like it gives energy to the cell. That's why it is called the powerhouse. He put the dots together and now he understood. Now imagine you did that for literally every other topic. You'd remember it more. You'd remember it forever. That's how I remember every business topic I've learned because I just made it make sense. I didn't use a textbook language. I just made it make sense to me. So now I understood it. I'm thirsty. Bye.